Hey, welcome to the Green Room. Today's going to look a little bit different than it normally does. We wanted to take an opportunity to show you a sneak peek of this week's episode of The Table. If you're unfamiliar with that, you can click the link in the description. It will take you to the YouTube channel so you can subscribe. It's a podcast hosted by Pastor WAYLON and Pastor Dana around a table. If you think about it, most of the important conversations that you've ever had in your life have usually happened at a table, whether it's an office, a boardroom, a dinner table, coffee table, whatever it might be. It's a place of conversation, and we hope that these are allowing you into and make you feel like you're a part of a conversation. Sometimes we answer your questions, and sometimes it's things that are on their heart that they may add value to your life. So subscribe to the channel, and you'll be notified Thursday when the full length of what you're about to see comes out. So that's enough of me talking. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between Pastor WAYLON, Pastor Dana, and Nancy Houston.
So we want to talk about marriage stuff because we're in this whole series of marriage, and we've been talking about marriage, and we're all married. So there are a number of questions that we get. One of the things we do as a church is, and I kind of took this from the late Tim Keller, I guess, but Tim Keller used to do a deal where he would preach a message in New York in his church, and then he would just go to another room adjacent to it and just like, anybody who has questions, meet me over there.
Oh, how cool.
And, to do that in New York, in Manhattan, think about that.
I love that.
And the majority of his ministry was really, I believe, focused. I mean, was an incredible mind and scholar and academic and lover of people and all of that. But, to think about he would literally just go to another room and say, okay, if you got questions, come ask me right after service. And it can be about anything. So, of course, in Manhattan, New York, you can imagine what you're getting. And so he dealt with tons of agnostics and atheists and people who are struggling and new believers. And so you can imagine what those sessions were like. I would imagine the questions, and he had such grace every time I heard him talk, very strong, but very grace-filled. But so we started this thing in our church where, okay, we can't pull off into a side room necessarily where we're at, but we started this idea of just having a follow-up conversation on Monday mornings that would be released for people to ask questions about the message and like, hey, what about this? And so it's interesting to me when we go in to talk about marriage. I mean, the questions just go off the chart. Like you could talk about anything else, and you'll get a few people. And then you'll always get those people who ask questions that have nothing to do with anything. They're just like, where are the dinosaurs? And so it's always that case, like UFOs, dinosaurs, and eclipses,
Eclipse.
And so, which I'm like, okay, great. We have fun with it. But so the questions on marriage just absolutely comes. And so it just shows me there's a huge need out there.
Such a big need.
For these nobody really teaches us about marriage.
No.
Where do we learn?
Does.
Parents, Hollywood, that sort of thing, whatever it might be, or we just don't. We just figure it out as we go, and that's often really struggling. So I want to jump right into what is the most, for me, and I think probably for Dave, this is the question that we get all the time. And I think I know some of your perspective, and I appreciate your perspective on this, but the question always comes up in terms of within the context of a married relationship, what is allowable? That's always this question, like, is it, if it's consensual, if it's whatever, is it just all okay? And, obviously the Bible doesn't say a lot about that space, and the church has a lot to say about it, perhaps historically, but the Bible doesn't
Let us
really
give you the do's and don'ts.
And so like the Bible has not a lot to say about it. It says a lot about before. It says there's some things,
Yeah.
And so when you get that question, how do you respond to people who are asking that, those deviant people out there who just want to know? Not really, just kidding. But how do you walk people through that process?
Well, I think married sex is meant to be about a deep connection.
Right.
So it's less about what are we doing and how are we truly connecting.
Wow. Yeah.
So I think there's some things, though, parameters to put around that.
Yeah.
Like I've worked with couples who come in and say, we just don't connect during sex. And I'm like, well, what's happening before that?
Right.
Well, we've started using porn to try to become more aroused because we're not connecting. I'm like, well, how's that working? They're like, well, it's not. That's why we're here.
Right, right.
And I'm like, well, the thing is, I'm not the sex police, number one.
Right.
And the two of you have to, you two get to figure this out.
Sure.
Right. But you're saying you're not experiencing true intimacy.
Right.
And true connection. And, sex is meant to be about this deep knowing. Like, we know each other. And so that says so much. Like, there's safety, there's connection.
Right.
There's a mutual respect, a mutual love for each other. And, the thing, this is my concern about porn.
Right.
Is then we attach to things.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so you can attach to images.
Right.
Instead of the human
Yeah.
you are meant to be with.
Right.
And sex was meant to be this beautiful person to person, eye to eye experience.
Right.
That it's mysterious.
Yeah.
It's meant to go beyond what we have words to describe.
Right.
And so when we bring, like I've worked with couples that bring in other people,
Right.
and it never works.
Right.
It never works.
Right.
No matter how hell-bent they are on doing that.
Right.
2 years later, it's like they're divorced. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where that leads you.
Right.
So the things that the world says are going to arouse you, which they will.
Right.
But if we're looking for something more than just arousal,
Right. Right.
if you're looking for something that truly is passionate and I think truly erotic,
Right.
that then you've got to look at the big picture
Yeah.
of what are we creating together.
Right.
Right. So, how would you encourage people that are saying, "Okay, we want that connection"?
Yeah.
How do you now encourage them?
Yeah.
In that pursuit.
Wow. Yeah, there's always some mystery to that.
Right. Right.
And what that looks like for each couple.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
For
Right.
Ron and I, like last night, I was telling Dana that we just sat out on the patio for like an hour and a half and just talked about life.
Yeah.
And then I think sexual intimacy just kind of is a natural response
Right.
to other types of intimacy.
Right.
Whether that's intellectual intimacy, spiritual, heart to heart.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we prayed about a few things.
Sure.
And then sexual intimacy just flows out of that. And so I'd encourage couples like, are you spending time together?
Yeah.
And I don't mean where like it's meetings about your finances together.
Right. Right.
Like you do
Yeah.
need to schedule meetings.
Yes.
Like maybe Saturday morning we have a come to Jesus meeting about our finances, the
Sure.
kids, the work, all the things.
Yeah.
Right.
The business of life. You
Right.
do have to attend to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just mean like where you are intellectually connecting, where you are heart to heart connecting, where you are developing, even if you go row a canoe together. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Go have some recreational intimacy. Go to an art museum, have some beauty and music and, create these other areas of intimacy in your life. And
Right.
then sometimes sexual intimacy can flow from that. Now, I also totally believe that you have to prioritize sexual intimacy.
Right.
Because it won't just automatically happen. And, sadly, we've all been trained on movies and romances
Sure.
where you just look at each other and you want to rip each other's clothes off and have wild,
Right.
passionate sex.
Right.
And I'm like, best wishes. Best wishes.
Day one.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
That works for a while.
Right,
Maybe
right.
until your first big fight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. True.
And then from there on out, you've got to keep sex on the front burner.
Right.
And no, we prioritize us.
Right.
And we make space, we save room, we save physical energy, we save space in our minds
Yeah.
for each other.
Yeah. That's awesome. So
And just prioritizing. I've worked with couples. I mean, I think of this one couple. I probably worked with them almost 25 years ago.
Wow.
I can tell you to this day, I'm like, you guys, they had a crummy sex life.
Right.
And they came in to go, we have a crummy sex life. We always have.
Right.
And we've been married for I don't know, they'd probably been married 35 years at that point.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm like, that's hard. That's been bad for 35 years.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
So we just started talking about sexual things, which I'd never done.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They were both kind of raised in very religious, rigid backgrounds where you don't talk about sex. Sex is dirty. So we
Right.
just had to normalize, unpack, have great conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, hey, you guys, for a while, I'd like you to schedule sex.
Right. Right.
So they have sex Tuesday nights and Saturday mornings. And to this day,
Right.
they still have sex
Awesome.
Tuesday night, Saturday mornings.
Uh-huh.
And the husband says, oh, nothing. Oh, nothing
That's awesome.
interferes
He'll come knocking on Tuesdays.
with
No.
Tuesday night and Saturday morning. And I'm like, okay, I'll remember not to call you on that. He goes, it wouldn't matter.
sorry.
The phones are off.
Right. Everything's off the hook.
Right. And I'm like, that, and they, they have the worst sex life. And now they teach classes on
That's
sex.
awesome.
They're like 70 something.
Wow. Wow.
And they're just a sweet little couple.
Uh-huh.
And, they just like, the husband's like, oh, I adore you. I will always love you because you changed
Yeah.
our
For
married
sure.
life.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's a big deal. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a
Such a big
massive part
deal.
of just our culture, but even within marriage, I mean,
Oh, my gosh.
when it's not right, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, when it's not right, it feels like everything's wrong.
everything else just
You
kinda-
know?
So how would you address when the couples are not on the same page?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she's I don't
She
I
wants
don't,
sex 5 times a day, and
Yeah.
he wants it once a month.
Yes.
There
Like,
we go.
how
See, we
do
have
you-
to make this even.
Yes.
We've always
Yes.
thought men have the
Right.
higher sex
Yeah,
drive.
I appreciate
Right.
you doing that.
Yeah, there we
So-
go.
Yeah.
But 30% of the time, at least, the female has a higher sex drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it changes in seasons of life too.
Absolutely.
For sure.
It absolutely. I mean, if
sure.
you got a bunch of small kids
it-
running around.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's
you know,
like,
she's exhausted.
really? I
Yeah.
have been sucked on and pulled on already.
Can you say that?
She can.
Nancy can say that, but
I mean, I don't mean that rudely, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
She's had a
I-
Now
child,
you know why she's
a
like.
child climbing on her, and
I'm with you. No,
you know,
absolutely.
all the things all day.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So it could be
One of the
hard.
things I love about you, Nancy, and I aspire to this after just hanging with you just for a few years, is you normalize so much of these conversations.
Yeah.
In a way that is, you know, it's not graphic. It's never done out of just gratuitous
Yeah,
shock value.
right.
No.
But you just normalize these
Yeah.
things to what
Yeah.
people are really living
Yeah.
and want to experience. You know, they're experiencing it, and they're like,
Right.
"I wish somebody could just say it, so
Yes.
Yeah.
I could not feel so much shame around it and
Yeah.
so much
Right.
embarrassment around it, and
Right.
things of that nature." So,
Right.
Yeah.
so the getting on the same page. That's,
Okay.
Well, you know, and there are so many. I mean, a female hormonally changes every day.
wow,
Men are more consistent,
right,
you know, and then as men age, they have less testosterone. So
True.
they become sexually a little more like a female.
right,
And then a lot of times, once a female is not worried about getting pregnant anymore
Yeah.
or her nest is emptied, her desire can sometimes skyrocket.
Right,
And
right.
he's like, hey, I finally have mellowed out. you
I
know,
finally lowered this. Deal
I know. I mean,
yeah.
it's like, isn't it funny? I'm like, God, you're hilarious. Like,
Right.
it's almost like purposefully,
yeah,
he never puts us on the exact same page.
Mm-hmm.
So we constantly have to be, like you mentioned yesterday in Ephesians, submitting one to another.
right,
Right.
right,
And like, I love and care about you,
right.
and you love and care about me. Do I need to bring you along sexually, or do you need to
Right.
bring me along sexually?
Right, right.
Who's going to be the inviter?
Yeah, so the
Right?
initiators. Yeah,
And,
that's good.
right? Like,
I
and
love that you use the word inviter
Yeah.
instead of initiator.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes that can feel,
like pressure.
yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to initiate. Oh
Yes.
gosh, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But what if we were just to like invite?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd like to invite you to have sex with me.
Uh-huh.
And asking ourselves, am I being inviting, or am I being a jerk and demanding?
Wow.
Uh-huh.
You know, because if you're being a jerk and demanding and entitled,
Yeah.
or you know, like when he gets older, if his erections aren't what they used to be, like, what's wrong with you? I mean, people can be mean.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing
They can be mean.
how
Yeah.
unkind people can
Or,
be.
you
Yeah.
know, when a woman has all these little kids and he's like, you're such a disappointment.
Wow.
Like, what happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I've had 3 of your
Yeah.
children,
You were there. Yeah, exactly. You were there.
you know, and I was up all night
Yeah.
Right.
and I'm exhausted
Yeah.
and you aren't that helpful with the kids,
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
Huge.
And so instead of like being demanding, if he were to say, hey, Ron used to do this for me. Hey, babe, we have 4 boys. I'll put the boys to bed.
Yeah.
You go like take a bath,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever you want
Right.
to
Yeah.
do.
Just your
Right.
time. Yeah.
You know,
Right.
go have some you time and I'll wrestle with these boys and throw them all in bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it is a deal. And I'll meet you in about 45 minutes. Right?
Right.
Because that could be
Ron
enough.
was the sexiest man alive.
He
at
is.
that moment. Like, he was.
He is. He really is. And he's so sweet. Like,
Right.
it's, you know, women have busy minds.
Sure. Right.
You know, men, I can have male brain envy because men literally can have compartments.
Sure.
And I'm like, wouldn't that be lovely?
Wouldn't it?
Mine does not fit into one compartment. It takes it all up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Spaghetti brain.
And so sometimes,
just-
So sometimes we get in bed and we're gonna like make love, and he's like, "Hey, are you here?" And you know, he knows I'm not.
Right.
My brain
Right.
is afar off, and that's why it's been proven.
Yeah.
This is why females need 21 minutes of foreplay.
Gotcha.
It takes that long for
Y'all
her.
heard it here. 21
minutes. Write that down.
21 minutes to heaven. That's what we're
I
going to call
said
it.
that somewhere.
That's what we're calling it.
A wife texted her husband
Yeah.
after I'd said that, and he says, "Baby, I'm gonna give you 22.
I'm going to rock your world.
I'm gonna rock your world. I'm
22
setting the
and a half
alarm for
minutes.
22
Yeah.
minutes," and I'm like, "Oh, that's so cute, right? Right?" And sometimes she won't need that,
Yeah.
but to know that, because sometimes I think females, because our minds are so busy,
Yeah.
and if we compare ourselves to the quickness of a male,
Right.
we can feel like, what is wrong with me?
Right. Right.
I am slow. I am.
Right.
And now he's having to take all this time to get me warmed up, and he's probably bored, and let's just get it over with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then she doesn't enjoy it.
yeah.
You know, so it boomerangs. It doesn't work.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And so if he can slow down and say, "Hey, honey, you have all the time you need,"
Yeah.
you know? And I want to invite you and bring you along. And if he'll be kind and patient that way,
Yeah.
then it will benefit him, you know?
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
It
And the
strikes me.
marriage.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
One, having bad experience after bad
Right.
experience
Oh,
Right.
man.
just kind
No
of
anticipation.
sets you up for
I know.
failure.
It really
future.
does.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got to have a sense of humor. Where
sure.
sometimes we go, "Well, baby, I hope that was good for you." You know, but and don't worry, next time I'm going to get mine. I mean, you know, you just have to like, you know,
I'm just going to
you-
sit here quietly. Just let you all talk.
you've got to, you know, I'm like, for females, they've got to be sometimes, not always, but I think for both sexes, really, you have to have the freedom to go after what you desire,
Right. Right.
and not just passively hope it'll come to
Right.
you,
Yeah.
Right.
but to pursue,
Huge.
Right.
you know,
Right.
pursue sexual desire, pursue sexual intimacy,
Yeah.
because I totally believe it is like the oil in the engine. Like sometimes Ron and I are annoyed with each other.
Right.
And, you know, we've just learned being married 50 years. Like you just go, "Hey, let's put our annoyance over there
Yeah.
and let's go make love to each other." And then you can come back out,
Right.
out of our room and look at the annoyance on the shelf and go, "Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
not annoyed
not that
anymore.
annoyed."
I can't remember what it was."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's such a gift.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's such a gift.
Yeah.
So good.
Because sex releases all the God's pharmacy.
Yeah. No, it's true.
You know, a natural God-given pharmacy, and it really releases all these bonding hormones and feel-good hormones. And honestly, if you're going to be married, you need the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Because
For sure.
marriage can
For
be
sure.
hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be
Yes.
wonderful and
Yeah.
delightful, and it can be at times excruciating.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.